So our fifth topic is the midpoint formula. Now, similar to the distance formula, there is a formula that you can memorise, or again, using common sense, you can find your halfway points. So your midpoint is the halfway point between your two coordinates, x1, y1 and x2, y2. So to find our midpoint, we add our x coordinates together and divide them by 2, which gives us an x coordinate. We then add our y coordinates together and divide them by 2, which gives us our y coordinates. Or, like I said, you could just find the halfway between your x and the halfway between your y. Notice that we use a capital M for midpoint. Now, that's going to be quite important as we progress through the straight line topic. It's a lowercase m for gradient and a capital M for midpoint. So here we've got two examples, starting with the example on the left. We're being asked to calculate the midpoint of the two coordinates given. So our midpoint is our x coordinates added together and divided by 2. Our y coordinates added together and divided by 2. As always, remember coordinates are made up of an x and a y, an x and a y. It then doesn't matter which set you call set 1, so I'm going to call this set 1 and this set 2. So I'm doing x1 plus x2, x1 is 4, plus x2, which is negative 2. I'm dividing it by 2. y1 is negative 3 plus y2, which is 5, and I'm dividing that by 2 as well. 4 plus negative 2, if I have a plus and a negative, that's going to give me a takeaway. So 4 take away 2 is just 2 over 2. Negative 3 plus 5 is also 2 over 2, which then simplifies to 1, 1. So you can check this answer, or slightly different way of doing it. If we have 4 as an x coordinate and negative 2 as an x coordinate, does it make sense that 1 is in the middle? So if we think about a number line, if we've got our 4 here and our negative 2 is back here, between that we would have negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So thinking about our midpoint, or thinking back to when you learnt about medium, we can then work our way through and 1 is in the middle. If you've done similar for your y, you would be able to check it, or you would be able to find it. If I've got negative 3 and I'm going up to 5, does it make sense that 1 is in the middle? Yes, because to get from 1 to negative 3, I would have to take away 4, and to get from 1 to 5, I would have to add on 4. So it's 4 either way of 1, so I'm quite happy that that's right. In this next example, it's slightly trickier in that we're given something that we have to actually read and interpret before we use our formula. So it's telling us that in the diagram, A lies on the circumference of a circle with centre C. So straight away, I'm going to be drawing out that picture. So I've got a circle. I know that A is lying on my circumference. And I know that C is the centre of my circle. Line AB is the diameter. So if this is A, diameter crosses through the middle. This must be B over here. It's asking me to find the coordinates of B. So unlike our last example, we're not asked to find a midpoint. We're actually given our midpoint, because if you look at the line AB, C has to be your midpoint of that line. So there's actually two ways that you can do this question, and I'm going to look at both. So the first way is by using the formula that we've just been given. So if we know that our midpoint is our x coordinates added together, divided by 2, comma, our y coordinates added together, divided by 2, we can substitute in the information that we know and use it to create some equations to help us. So our midpoint is 1712, and that is equal to, so here's an x coordinate, here's a y coordinate, and I'm going to call this set 1. B is what I'm trying to find. B would be made up of an x coordinate and a y coordinate, and B would be your second set of coordinates. So if I'm doing x1, which is 9, plus x2, which I don't know, divided by 2, y1 is negative 2, plus y2, which I don't know, divided by 2. This then sets me up with two different equations. So my x coordinate is equal to my x coordinate, and my y coordinate is equal to my y coordinate. So I've got 9 plus x2 divided by 2 equals 17. I would then need to solve that. So I need to start balancing through my equation. First thing I'm going to do is times both sides by 2 to give me 9 plus x2 is equal to 34. I'm trying to get x2 on its own. To do that, I'm going to have to take away 9 from both sides. So x2 is equal to 25. So the x coordinate of b is going to be 25. I then have to do the exact same thing for my y coordinates. So I've got negative 2 plus y2 over 2 is equal to 12. Negative 2 plus y2 is equal to 24, same as the last time, that's by multiplying both sides through by 2. I then end up with y2 is equal to 26 because I'm adding 2 to both sides to balance up that equation and get y2 on its own. So 26 is my y coordinate. So that means that my midpoint, my coordinate for b, which is not my midpoint, is 25, 26. So that's your first method, and that comes from using your formula. There is, however, a different method that we call the stepping up method. Now, normally we would be doing the vectors topic. This is something that commonly comes up in the vectors topic, but it's applicable in other places, and this would be one of them. So this is a bit like our Pythagoras method when we were first doing our distance formula as well. So if I have a straight line, as I've done in my circle, here's my point A, which is 9, negative 2, and here's my point C, which is 17, 12. All your steps are going to be equal. So it's a bit like in Pythagoras when we create our right angled triangles and we figure out our distances. So looking at the difference in our x values. So if we started at 17 and we've ended up at 9, or we started at 9 and ended up at 17, just depends on how you're looking at it. Either way, we have got a horizontal shift of 8. The gap between 17 and 9 is 8, so we've got a horizontal shift of 8. If we then look at our vertical shift, so again, if you started at negative 2 and went to 12, or vice versa, started at 12 and went to negative 2, it doesn't matter which way you start, it's all about the vertical shift. Our vertical shift is 14, because the gap between 12 and negative 2 is 14. So if between C and A, I've shifted along by 8 and I've shifted down by 14, I then have to do the same between C and B, which is what we're trying to find. So if C is currently at 17, 12, I need to go back the way by 8. That's going to affect my x coordinate. So my 17 is actually going to be 17 plus 8. And now I'm going to have to do the same for my y coordinates. So my y coordinate is currently at 12, but I've got a shift of 14. So my diagram's not the best, or my line's not the best to be looking at, because this point B obviously looks lower. However, if we look at our y's, we've started at negative 2, we've then went up to 12, which means that we're having to add on 14 each time. So my sketch is a bit deceiving in this case, however it's still manageable as long as you're thinking carefully about the direction that you're going in. So if I've got 17 and I add on 8, I've got 25, 12 add on 14, I've got 26. So B is the coordinates 25, 26, which is what I had calculated first time round. So again, you've got the mathematical approach using your equation, or you can do this stepping out method. Whichever one you're more comfortable with is the one that you go for.